Hello everyone. Today we are going to explain how to create a hierarchical quiz in BookWidgets. So we kind of merged three of our widgets together, but you can still use our widgets separately too. We are talking about the quiz worksheet and split worksheet activity that have been changed a little bit, or not really changed, but we've added some more possibilities to these widget types. To understand again, first what we're coming from, I'm going to show you a few examples of each of these types, and then you will be able to see what will change with the new hierarchical quiz feature. So this one is a quiz, and if we are looking at a quiz, we know that it is a question by question format. So your students get one question, they click on the arrow and go to the other question. When we go to look for a worksheet, then we will see that all questions are below each other. So students have to scroll through a one-pager with all questions below each other. And then the last one is a split worksheet. When we look at a split worksheet, it's a combination of a worksheet with all the questions below each other. And on the other side, a multimedia or rich text format where you can add multimedia resources like images, but also text, PDF documents, web embeds, video materials, and more. So these are the different formats. The change is gonna go within each of these types. You will be able to change the format, but you will also be able to just use it as you know it. So when you just click on each one of these activities, they will have the setup as a default, as a standard where you start that you're used to. So you can still create a quiz question by question, a worksheet with questions below each other, and a split worksheet with a split view and a worksheet. But when we're going to click the quiz or the worksheet or another one, we will have the option to change the layout of this page. So we have a single question per page. That is what we know. So this is a quiz. Then we have all questions on one page, which will be a worksheet. So we can go from a quiz widget and we can just transform it in a worksheet too. You don't particularly have to choose one or the other when you start because you can still change it. But the different and new thing is the multiple questions per page. This means that you have a quiz set up, but instead of just one question per page, you can group questions on one page before students are moving on to the other page with the arrow, and then have a lot of other questions there too. So it will be a combination of a quiz, so the quiz setup where they have this arrow and go through the questions, and a worksheet where you have multiple questions below each other. So in this case, you will have a quiz with not just one question on the page, but multiple questions below each other, like the worksheet format. But you will also have the pages where your students can go through the question groups. So this is obviously what I'm going to choose today to create these multiple pages to create a hierarchical quiz for you guys. When I'm gonna go here, we also have the option to create a split view with these questions like the split worksheet. So again, in the beginning I said we kind of merge everything together. You still have all the options you're used to, but now you can also create a multiple questions per page split worksheet quiz. So what we're going to do first is add our different pages. So on one page, when we want to start with, for example, a text question, we can start building our lesson. So my first text question is in here. The title is in here. What I want to do is give my students a little bit instructions of what they have to do. So they will get a story on the left. They have to answer the questions after reading and then continue to the next question page by clicking the arrow at the bottom. They can drag the divider between the text and the question screens to make the screen wider or narrow. And you can also switch from story to another resource, a dictionary, if they need help with the meaning of the new words in the story. So that's a lot to comprehend, but I'll show you how that will look continuing this video. When I go back to my questions to add more questions, I will be able to see to add a question to this particular question page or to add a new page, which will mean that my students will move to a new page with different questions that maybe belong together or have a connection between each other. So I'm going to add all my pages and all my questions right now. I'm going to do this by importing from another widget because I have them already, but you can also do this manually. Click here to add a question, click here to add a page, and you will be able to add more questions too. There are some other buttons here for each question that you already know. So duplicate a question, delete a question, and also move the questions around. You can also move the question around by dragging and dropping, and you can move them from one page to the other without any issues. As you can see, I now created 4 pages with each set of questions. So they will have different themes or a different setup for my students. So you can see page 1 and it holds these questions. Page 2 holds another set of questions, page 3 and page 4. When I go to preview, it will look like this with these question pages. So I have like a theme, for example, and then all the questions that belong to that part of my quiz are below each other in worksheet style. And then the quiz style is that you can move to the other question page with another set of questions, move to the other question page with another set of questions. So you're building your hierarchical quiz like this. My last question page, for example, with another set of questions. So this is one part of what we created and the new feature holds, but there's another part and that holds the resources. So we already know now that you can kind of combine a quiz with a split worksheet by creating multiple questions by clicking the layout multiple question per page. The other thing that you can do is also add some split resources, some multimedia resources to these question pages. So when I go to resources, I can add all my resources here and later on pin them to particular question pages. You can also make sure that just one resource or more multiple resources go for every single question page, but you can also make sure that you add some other resources and one resource goes to one question page, the other resource goes to the other question page. So when I click add resource, I have a few options here. So I can add rich text, video, PDF, audio, and web embed and an image. In the web embed, I can embed any website that allows it, and I can even embed links of other widget activities to create a split feeling of, for example, a jigsaw puzzle with then on the other side questions about what's on the jigsaw puzzle. So that's a really nice touch here. So again, I'm going to choose for a web embed. I have a nice website with my entire story for my questions too. Most of the time, I would rather add resources first because I'm going to ask questions about a resource, but the order you're doing it doesn't really matter that much. So we're going to label it. This label is interesting for when you have multiple resources that your students will see buttons at the bottom to switch from the one resource to another resource. So in this case, it's my story or my text. So I could say text, but I'm also just going to say story here. I do have a link. I'm going to paste it right now. So this is my resource here, and I'm gonna add some more resources because I don't really want to just keep it one. I have some more things that I can add. And another resource that I want to add is like a rich text where my students will have a dictionary. I do have some text to mention, so I'm gonna add here before I'm adding a web embed of a dictionary, an online dictionary. So this is my text. Find the meaning of words by placing them in the online dictionary below. And I'm going to insert here a website. and give the link of the online dictionary. Confirm. Now, the online dictionary, the screen has a nice height. I'm going to change the screen to only have like um, this search window for my students. I'm going to click edit and I'm just going to change the height and the width is perfect. So I'm going to confirm the window will be smaller. My students will still be able to scroll in the window, but when I go to preview later on, it will just highlight what I need. So that's the other resource. Last resource I'm going to add is a workbank. Again, rich text, and I'm going to add a table. So you can insert here, you can choose for a table, or you can copy paste a table that you already have from somewhere else into this rich text field. So I'm going to give it a label, word bank. So copy paste. This is my word bank. So I'm giving my students some words and some meanings to work with and some questions that will correspond with this word bank. Okay, so this is it. When I go to preview, you will see that the setting is that each of these resources are shown for each question page. I'm going to start from the beginning. Okay, so we have our first question page and we have these different stories. So the different resources, we have the story that my students have to read. There's a dictionary for when they want to find some words, so they can just look up for a word that they don't understand to make sure that they can answer the questions, the comprehension questions on the other side. And there is a word bank on this side as well. So my students can scroll through the word bank with some interesting words that they will need in their assignments again on the other side. There's also a divider. So my students can divide. This is normal. This has the split worksheet has this one too. And my students can just move between the resources and and enlarge the screen of it, but also make it smaller to focus more on the question types. So this is where all resources show on one page. Another thing that you can do here is configure resources to show on each page to just choose yourself which resources is associated with which question type. So when we go to questions again, now when I enable that option, I will be able for my page, for this page, to show the settings and to add resources for this page. So for this page, I want my students to have the story so they can read the story and also have the dictionary so they can use a dictionary when they don't understand some words. Add selected. For the second page, which is about plot analysis, I don't want my students to read the story again because they already read it. They should know what the story is about. So I'm just gonna add the dictionary. So again, if they want to look up some words, they can get the dictionary. The third one is about, again, theme and reflection. Here, I don't want my students to see this story. They have to reflect on it. So they can, again, just have that dictionary. And then later on for vocabulary and grammar, I want my students not to have the dictionary, not to have the story, but I want them to have the word bank. So these questions will be about the words that they learned in the story, these new words, the word bank. Add selected. So in this case, when I go to preview, my students will see a resource for that is associated with the question page. So in the first one, we had the story and the dictionary. In the second one, we just had the dictionary. There's no switcher, no divider between other resources anymore. Then we have again the dictionary. And we have here the word and meaning, the word bank for my students. So this is very interesting if you want to create a good layered quiz that has different topics or different themes in it. Well, there is another thing that I want to show you as a tip. So in this case, I added some resources so that my students can not use the text in this question, but in this case, they can still go back, read the entire story again, and then just answer the other questions. So this is something I want to disable, and this I can do with in the general settings. Then I go to strict answering order, and here I need to say that questions need to be answered in order. And I can also disable that my students can see previous answers. So this means that they won't be able to go back to the other question, the previous question, and also not go back to the resource that was attached to those questions. So this is something I'm gonna disable. If you still allow students to see previous answer, they can still move back through your quiz pages and also see the multimedia resources. The only thing they won't be able to do is change the answers that they already typed in. So disable this one. And then when I go to preview, I'll show you how that looks again. So my students can move through the questions, but they have to say ready and continue. And then they can find the other one, ready and continue. So they have to be they have to be really, really sure that they answered all the questions before continuing, because there is no way back. There is no arrow to go back to the other question again. So that's something you might want to say in the beginning. There is a workaround for you as a teacher when you see that your students are skipping questions and they cannot go back again. In the live view mode, so when you go to BookWidgets and go to follow, when you've enabled this, and when you have a learning management system connection, you will be able to follow your students live, but you will also be able to return your students to the first question, and that's particular for this option when you enable the strict answering order and they skip a few questions but they cannot back. You can just move them back to the first question so they can go through the questions again with no issue. But then again, make sure to provide some good instructions, for example, in the instructions tab in the general options, that your students have to move through the quiz step by step and they won't be able to go back because they cannot see the resource anymore. So again, this opens a new world as well for you guys, new opportunities to do listening tests, reading tests, where they can just read something once, or they have a certain amount of reading something and then just go to the next question, but they won't be able to go back anymore. Again, to recap this entire new feature, that is when we're going to a quiz, a worksheet, or a split worksheet, we can choose a multiple questions per page. This means that we do have a different setup where we have a quiz and a worksheet in one. So we have quiz pages with more questions than just one question. That's one thing that you can do, creating that hierarchical quiz. The other thing is adding resources as a general, resources that are attached to each question page, or to display the resources configured for each page. If you're having this setting set up, you have to go to questions again to make sure to click the settings and to add the resources that are attached to each question page. So that's it for me. I hope this was enlightening. Make sure to check out the blog post as well to find some more lesson plans, lesson ideas, and ready to use activities to see how that works and to see what you can do with it. Thank you so much. Bye bye.